The other way to work is really a more free-form way to work. And I've talked about components before. In this case, I stitched up a few, just sewing a few pieces of fabric together here and there, and I've actually basted the seams. I've done some triangles, some ears here, just some little pieces of things that are really easy to do when you're sitting in front of the television or you're just got a bag of scraps and you want to sew them together, and they're not really anything at all, they're just pieces of things. And let me mention here this beautiful sheer that was pieced here. I did not baste those seams open. I actually basted all the fabric to the more opaque side so I don't interfere with that. But the idea here is if you have enough of these sitting around, and maybe even some other little pieces of things that you've done as what-ifs, some components from other projects, you can always just sort of start playing. Now, of course, depending on how many pieces you have all different sizes to work with. I've conveniently located some of these, but this idea is when you put together things, and maybe this looks better. No, that one looks better, I guess. You just kind of hodgepodge it. Maybe you've got an old piece of patchwork from somewhere. There could be a body, and maybe this could be a wing, and maybe this could be some legs. So you get the idea here. I mean, you could make a whole scene more or less from what you have laying around. Now you can collage these. You've used your patchwork, so that kind of falls within this category. Or you could actually just turn them down and start piecing them together like you have before. But basically you'd be working with what you have. Now the other version of this is really what I call sketching, and that's, let me explain here. The reason I call this patchwork is it's based on a drawing that's very similar to traditional patchwork. It stays with the little squares and the straight lines and things like that. In this case, I've actually just drawn my pattern, just like I did on paper, and I've basted it to a backing first. And what I'll do here is I'll start actually working fairly free-form. I've cut these ahead of time, but you can just snip and cut whatever you've got hanging around, and start to make a collage that's actually based on a patchwork grid. So to me it ends up looking very much like patchwork, even though you've appliqued it. I mean, you could even start using some of your ears in there or whatever. But you get the idea. You're actually now playing with an applique idea. Now you can do this either turned applique or you can do it ragged applique, and I'll go into those techniques later. But basically both of these techniques would be more of a collage technique.